Hey there y'all, I'm back with another one of these chill, good vibes commentary videos where we just kick back and appreciate the finer details put into Smash Ultimate. I wasn't sure how the reception was going to be in the last video, but you all seem to like it way more than I was expecting, so let's chat, shall we? An auditory detail I don't see brought up much at all is footsteps. Characters themselves have a pretty solid variety of sounds for when they walk and whatnot. Like Bowser as an example, whose steps get progressively more weighty the faster he runs. I also like how if you then dash dance, you can make it so you hear basically no sound at all. It almost gives it a sort of technical feel to it. Not technical like with machines, but as in like technique. Like how a ninja doesn't make any sounds with their speedy movement. So it's like you can go from hearing this dangerous behemoth whose every step quakes the earth, to a powerful, fast threat whom you can't even hear coming, like a predator in the wait. Or on the opposite side of the spectrum, you've got someone like Isabelle, who is very small and thus her footsteps create basically no noise. And the noise that it does create is very cute. It's bouncy, a playful sound for a playful character from a playful game. Though I also really like that her moving creates a bell sound. You've probably already noticed it yourself, but I do think it's a nice touch that I feel a lot of games would probably neglect. This is how she works in Animal Crossing 2, each of her steps creates a little bell ringing sound, so it's nice that they found this detail important enough to maintain. And I could probably spend the entire video talking about each character's footsteps and how I feel about them. I don't know, should I do that? Nah, okay. I just want to talk about the stages now. Just like each individual character has a slew of small sound design additions to really flesh them out, each stage has a lot to offer in that respect too. You see how I used Smashville for the beginning example? I had actually originally used the Bridge of Elden stage for no particular reason. Can you guess why I decided to change to Smashville instead? It's because Bridge of Elden has a pretty strong wind ambiance effect constantly going on in the background. In terms of showcasing a specific sound, I wanted a stage that was more silent, which is why I went to Smashville, whose ambient sounds are primarily just faint nature calls. Though there is a section where a UFO will just whir by, which unfortunately happened when I was doing the Bowser Footstep showcase, so I had to re-record that. But still, stage ambiance is something I never see mentioned really. It's not game-changing, but I found it definitely changes how the stage makes me feel. Going back to Bridge of Elden, the strong wind sound effect of the background makes it feel more vast, yet harsh. There's a feeling of overwhelming emptiness, I feel. It's different from the type of emptiness of just pure silence. It's kind of like that void section at the end of Undertale's Genocide route, where it's just a black screen and harsh wind. It's that same kind of vibe. And while the Bridge of Elden doesn't make me think of genocide necessarily, it's still got a sense of hollowness. It's a pretty interesting take on the stage, considering in the base game I'm usually listening to bombastic background music or just enjoying exploring the scenery, as Zelda so greatly does. And that vibe would probably return if I turned the music back on in-game. But without music, this ambiance is really something. Another great ambiance I want to mention can be found on Final Destination. It's got plenty of sound effects to match whatever craziness is going on in the background, especially that one part that sounds like a distant heartbeat. I really like this one. It feels kind of intense, or whatever this noise is. This one reminds me of like running water, but sharper, so it's probably the cubes in the background forming or whatever. It's kind of insane. But what I specifically wanted to talk about was the reverb effect that gets applied here. It didn't seem like some items or moves had the reverb, but characters themselves, their actions, and their voices did have that reverb applied. Listen to the difference. It makes the stage have a different sense of vastness than the harsh wind of the Bridge of Elden. That one felt like you were more outside, as there's not really reverb when you're outside, obviously. Having reverb here, despite being seemingly in an open space, makes it feel a lot more alien, which is definitely fitting paired with whatever is going on in the background. Now, to wrap up this auditory examination, I want to talk about what made me think about this topic in the first place, relating to footsteps. That is, there's a few stages that just outright change the footstep sounds altogether. Like here on the Mario Bros stage, the sounds for footsteps, pivoting, and landing are all different now. They replace whatever unique sound effect the character used to have and is almost universal. And it sounds really retro-y now, which really fits the stage, and I think that's an amazing touch. A different sound can also be found on, say, Feurolant, where there's no unique pivoting sound, but there is one for when you land. And another really interesting detail is characters like Mewtwo. He doesn't walk, rather he floats. So he doesn't make footstep sounds at all, really, and so he doesn't make any here. Now, they do trigger the landing sound effect that happens, which makes sense because they are landing, but they also make the footstep sound effect happen when they run, but on the Mario Bros stage, not Feurolant. So I guess there is room for variance here, intentional or not, but generally that's how it is. I think it's a really lovely touch how these silly retro stages just give you such unique footstep sounds, and how the floating characters usually omit this. It's a type of thing that you've probably noticed, maybe, but just never really pointed out, because who talks about this kind of stuff? Also, I just realized that I spend a lot of time talking about stages compared to the characters and such. I guess it's because there's like over 100 unique stages, and the discussion that surrounds them that I see usually boils down to just whether or not it's tournament legal. But here, to spice things up, I saw a tweet from Chidatsuki Hero on Twitter pointing out something regarding Dr. Mario's entrance animation that absolutely blew my mind. It's really small and obvious in retrospect, like a lot of these kind of details are, but look at his entrance animation in slow motion. The pills are actually lining up with the colors and disappearing accordingly, just like in Dr. Mario. And it makes complete sense in retrospect, but it happens so fast in real time that I just don't think about it. As far as I used to be able to tell, it was just pills falling, you know? Not only is it fast, but if you're player 2, you're probably not going to be able to see the entirety of your animation unless you go to a custom stage that's just super small. Given all of this, it is really easy to miss, and yet it's that type of tiny little detail that I just love to discover. It totally enhances my appreciation for this game. This is another one of those things where it's hard to decide whether I should mention this in this type of video or my main random facts videos. But hey, I'm going to use it here as an excuse to talk about other entrance animations. First, every single Pokemon's fighter entrance animation is the same, in that they appear from a Pokeball. While it's obvious why that is for Pokemon Trainer, for the other Pokemon it sort of implies that you, the player, are their quote-unquote trainer, maybe. I point this out though because there are two Pokemon that don't spawn from a Pokeball in their entrance animation, those being Mewtwo and Lucario. This is a really nice touch I only really thought about when making this video. Mewtwo is a legendary, one of really high power, so it makes sense to make him come off as more independent, not owned by anyone. Now, while Pokemon isn't a stranger to having children tame gods, as far as I recall from the Pokemon anime I've seen and whatever, Mewtwo, along with the other legendaries, aren't usually caught as much as they are just befriended, if anything. So it's cool that they've kept this aura of untamedness to him. The same is true for Lucario. He's not a legendary, but I definitely remember him being, like, some kind of super important in that one movie about him. My memories about these types of things are really hazy, so you'll have to forgive me, but clearly Lucario here is given the same sort of independence. And as a child, I always thought he was a legendary, until I guess I found out he wasn't, or something. So I don't know, it's a really nice touch. I also like Young Link's entrance animation. See, he hasn't been in Smash since Melee, and Melee didn't have entrance animations, so Ultimate is his first time getting one. And what we see is him falling from the sky in the blue light, much like the way you would teleport in-game outside of a dungeon. It was a nice choice, since they're clearly going for the Ocarina of Time representation of this character. Samus's entrance is one I really like too. It's her exiting a save point. I'm pretty sure that's what that is after all. I don't know how to really describe it, but seeing something that reminds me of the 2D Metroid games in this more, 3D yet side-scrolling format makes me really happy. I love the 2D Metroid games, I love them to death, but I could never quite get into the 3D ones. I'm not entirely sure why, but there's probably a ton of factors for it. but as it stands I may as well consider them different games. That's why I was super stoked when they had announced Metroid Samus Returns. I think some of the magic was still lost, perhaps that was inevitable anyways, but I do think I'll always miss the use of pixel art for games designs. I just think this is by far my favorite way in which a game can be presented. I don't know if that's nostalgia talking or something, but the details are just so minimalistic yet clear, and very clean overall, with nothing important being lost. The 2D Metroid games are some of my favorite examples of this, but so too are games like the Minish Cap or Mother 3. So it is a bit of a shame that this style of graphics is probably gonna die out, at least in terms of use from major game developers. The style that's found in Octopath Traveler is really cool, but it's still kind of different to me. I don't know, tell me your thoughts on pixel art, I don't really see it talked about a lot. Anyways, I brought this up because seeing Samus exit the save point like this, especially paired with something like, say, Norfair's background, sometimes I think about what a Metroid game would be like with this general control scheme of Smash. Not like with a limited moveset, but in terms of how you move around the world and how it looks and such. And I especially get this feeling when I look at Norfair's background. You can see it's been laid out akin to how the actual Metroid games are laid out, with the blue doors and the slight variance in aesthetic between them all and all that. I think I'm primarily just interested in how clean Smash's graphics usually are and the fact that the camera is stuck at this angle, much like how 2D Metroid games are. I don't know, that's just something I think about when I see all these details combined and whatnot. Back to entrance animations, yeah, we're still not done there. The last one I want to point out is Ness's. He zooms in, covered in soot, and wipes it away. This is clearly him using Teleport, an ability you get in the Earthbound games. And while using it successfully doesn't cover you in soot, if you slam into things, that does. So it's mostly just a nice little touch. Frankly, I just like any details regarding Earthbound. It was one of those games for me that was so sadly limited by what we saw in game, that seeing those details built upon in any way makes me really happy, even if it's just for an animation that lasts a second. Like, I love the new addition in this game where the visual effects of their PSI has some of these same shapes and whatnot from the actual core games. I especially like PK Fires. It feels even easier to see its psionic effects and the use of triangles for it, like how they did with the real games, especially Mother 3. Magicant. Yeah, good transition. I also like Magicant. Seeing those Earthboundy things all hopped up in 3D and whatnot, it makes me think about what an HD Earthbound would look like. I once saw a mock-up idea on Twitter by elk_sign for what a remastered Mother 1 would look like too, and this looks awesome. Now I'm not too huge on the clay or toy aesthetic personally, which has been unfortunate for some games, but I at least think this is pretty fitting for this game and series. Earthbound is pretty important to me, as you can probably tell from my username. It hasn't aged too well, as I think I like Zelda way more than any other video game series, but hey, the name's here to stay, so whatever. And yeah, that's a video. I talked about things. Okay, so let me just have a chat with y'all as a content creator to a viewer real quick. I'm trying to think about how I'll title videos like these, if I keep doing them, you know? So far I've got the first one, which is appreciating the little things of Smash Ultimate, and this one, which is appreciating the little details of Smash Ultimate. That's the main vibe I want to give off too. That's sort of what I'm doing, you know, spending time looking over and, well, appreciating the little things of Smash Ultimate. The issue is that it's not a great strategy to just slap a number on a series title. I mean, it works, sometimes, but more often than not it's a detriment to the video and series, since usually if a viewer sees a big number 2 or 3 or god forbid an episode 10 in the title, they're gonna know that they've missed a lot, and they're not gonna immediately know whether or not it's okay that they missed a lot. This series episodes are completely standalone, which is why the number can be misleading, as you should probably be able to hop into any episode without any prior knowledge to the series and be perfectly fine. That's what my random fact videos are, which is why I try to avoid numbers. Now, perhaps this doesn't actually really matter, like I know that numbers don't like completely gut a video or series, but usually they're only really okay for channels that are already really big, you know? Where they're already going to be getting a ton of views, so it doesn't really matter. But regardless, I would at least like to try to avoid this for the sake of the series, so people feel comfortable watching whatever episode they happen to see, especially since they're probably going to be a newer viewer because I'm not that big of a channel yet. The workaround for this is to highlight a certain thing that happens in the video and make that the way you differentiate titles. Or you could just use synonyms like I did today, but that one is a lot more limited. Now, this isn't usually an issue if your whole video is just focused on one topic. Like if I were to make a video on a whole facts video of just one character, I could title it Random Facts About Mario or whatever. But given the diverse, rambling nature of my channel, it doesn't really work. So I guess just give me your thoughts in the comments. This is a group effort. I'm making content for you, so hearing your feedback only makes sense. Want me to suck it up and try using numbers? Have an idea for how I could diversify the titles and maintain longevity? Any other thoughts? I'd love to hear it, trust me. This is something I should figure out on my own, honestly, but hey, we're here chilling and chatting anyways. I figure just being a little transparent about this whole process could be interesting, since a lot of the inner workings and decisions content creators have to make aren't always obvious to the general masses. So, I hope you learned a thing or two, had some good vibes, and enjoyed the video. Oh yeah, and of course, before I leave, I'd like to thank my patrons Burbo, Raighne, BG, Dameplay, Feurolant, Parade Dino, Scully, Glaceon, Jigs, Keko the Dragon, Meep, Sky, and Stan Luna. I guess I shouldn't record at 1:30 in the afternoon after it just rained, so there's a whole bunch of background noise. But yeah, okay, so yeah, stay kind, stay casual, and I'll see y'all later.